Welcome to Night Bites. Scary story. If you're here, chances are you've been craving that chill down your spine and the kind of stories that haunt you long after they're told. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps push our content to the top of YouTube. Now then, turn off the lights, put on your headphones. Let's begin. This creepy incident happened when I was working as a sales manager at a real estate firm. I was grinding hard, chasing the dream, saving up for a decent apartment, planning to upgrade my car. I had goals, and I was charging toward them without looking back. Then I landed a massive client, huge. Only catch? He didn't live in the city. He was about 200 kilometers out, somewhere in the region. I had to drive out urgently to show him some elite property. It just so happened my girlfriend Katie's birthday was in 2 days. So I decided to combine business with romance, a surprise trip into nature, a little getaway, and I'd handle the deal along the way. Told her it was a romantic surprise. Threw a cake in the trunk, packed some champagne. Real smooth, right? We left late Friday evening after work. Traffic had cleared up, the highway was almost empty. I was driving fast. I wanted to get there as soon as possible. Katie was chirping about something at first, but eventually drifted off. I kept driving, music playing, lost in thought. About halfway there, we hit this stretch of road, long, straight, with thick forest walls on both sides, and a tunnel. Old, abandoned looking. The lighting was laughable. Every other bulb was dead, and the ones still working barely glowed. I remember thinking how creepy the place felt. Still, I didn't slow down. In fact, I stepped on it, just wanted to get through faster. Katie was asleep. I shot into the tunnel, and that's when the headlights lit up something right in front of the car. A figure. A woman. Standing in the middle of the road, back turned toward me, wearing an old dark dress and a scarf over her head. I slammed the brakes with everything I had. The car swerved, tires screaming. Impact. Not strong, but I felt it. My heart dropped. I jumped out of the car. Katie had woken up, looking around in panic. "What happened, Alex?" I think I hit someone." I ran around the front of the car. Nothing. No one. Under the chassis, empty. The road, clear. I checked the hood and bumper. Not a scratch, not a dent. Like nothing ever happened. "Maybe you imagined it." Katie peeked out, hugging herself. "No way! I felt the hit." But around us, only the echo of the tunnel and the flickering of dying lights. Not a soul. That's when it really got to me. I'm not the skittish type, but this chilled me to the bone. Like a bucket of ice water dumped down my back. "Let's get out of here, Alex, please," Katie whispered, close to tears. "I'm scared." We got back in the car. I looked around once more. Nothing. "Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks," I said, trying to convince us both, though I didn't believe it for a second. We kept driving, silent. The tension hung heavy. Then Katie spoke up. "Hey, it's midnight. My birthday's started." I forced a smile. "You're right. Happy birthday, babe." I pulled over once we were out of the tunnel, took out the cake, lit some candles, tried to create a festive mood, but my hands were shaking, hard. Katie blew out the candles. I popped the champagne. We got back in the car and had a small toast in plastic cups. She seemed to relax a little, started smiling again. And that's when I looked in the side mirror. I really wish I hadn't. In the side mirror, just behind Katie's shoulder, on the back seat, I saw her. That same woman. Only now, she was staring straight at me. I couldn't make out her face. It was lost in shadow. But her eyes, I saw them. That look, full of cold, furious hatred. Heavy, piercing, I whipped around, heart pounding. The back seat was empty. No one there. But when I looked back in the mirror, she was still there, sitting in silence, staring at me. Every hair on my body stood up. "Katie," I whispered, "there's someone in the back." She turned her head. "What are you talking about, Alex? There's no one." Then she looked at me, and it wasn't her anymore. Her eyes had gone blank, glassy, and the smile, my God, that smile, straight out of a horror movie, slow, unnatural. She reached toward me with one hand. "Alex, stay with me," she said, but it wasn't her voice. It was low, grinding, like broken metal scraping across stone. I screamed. Not words, just pure primal terror. I flung the door open and ran. No idea where, no plan, just away from that thing sitting in my girlfriend's skin. Behind me, I heard her laughing. That laugh still echoes in my ears. I must have run about 100 meters before I stopped, gasping for breath. I turned around. The car was still there, headlights on, total silence. I fumbled for my phone. My hands wouldn't cooperate. Somehow, I dialed 911. "Hello, ma'am, there's been an accident. No, not an accident, an attack." I didn't even know what I was saying, and then I saw it. The car slowly started moving. Hesitant, jerky. It pulled up next to me and stopped. Katie was behind the wheel. Normal Katie, tear-streaked, terrified. "Alex, where did you go? You scared me to death. What happened?" I stared at her, unable to speak. Was this real? Was any of it? "Katie, are you okay?" "Me? What about you? You're white as a ghost. What happened?" I approached the car cautiously, looked inside. No one in the back, just my own reflection in the mirror. "Let's go," I said. "Just drive. Anywhere. Just go." I got in the driver's seat and pulled away. And just when I started to think it might all have been some insane hallucination, Katie turned to me again. That smile, that voice. "Where do you think you're going, sweetheart? We haven't even celebrated yet." She lunged, hands around my throat, ice cold, not human. Her grip was unreal, clamping down, crushing. I couldn't breathe. Her fingers dug into my skin. My lungs burned, my vision blurred. And then, headlights. A horn blared. A massive semi-truck was barreling straight at us. I closed my eyes, bracing for impact. But it never came. When I opened my eyes, the thing that wasn't Katie had recoiled. She shielded her face from the light, hissing like an animal. The truck stopped just inches from us. The engine roared, then cut. A massive man in a greasy vest jumped out of the cab and sprinted toward us. He yanked the door open and shouted something. I think it was swearing. In his hand, he held a bottle with some liquid, which he splashed straight into her face. She shrieked, an inhuman, piercing sound that made my eardrums feel like they were splitting, and then she went limp. Collapsed into the seat like a puppet with its strings cut. The trucker pulled me out of the car. "You alive, man? Count yourself lucky. You just got a second shot at life." He looked back at the girl. "I know that thing," he muttered grimly. "Local legend. Used to be a woman who lived nearby. They say her man left her, and she went off the deep end trying to get him back. Dabbled in dark stuff. Real dark. Eventually snapped. Hung herself in this very tunnel." He spit on the ground. "Now she latches onto cars. Only ones with couples inside. If I hadn't shown up, she'd have dragged you into the woods, and your girl, she'd be hanging in that tunnel, same spot as her. You wouldn't be the first. Most ain't ever found." We carried Katie to the back seat. The trucker climbed behind the wheel of my car. "Don't worry," he said. I splashed her with holy water. She'll come around. I'll drive you to the nearest highway patrol. You can sort it out there. Then he looked me dead in the eyes. And remember this, son. Never, and I mean never, stop here at night again. Better yet, avoid this road entirely. Take the long way, every time. Katie didn't wake until dawn, when we were already in the hospital, thanks to the medics the troopers had called. She remembered nothing. Absolutely nothing. From the moment we entered the tunnel. Doctors said it was psychological trauma, severe stress. I never told anyone about what really happened. Katie and I broke up soon after. Things just fell apart. Texas summer hung over the land like a thick, wet blanket, clinging to everything, even after the sun dipped toward the horizon. My name is Oliver, and this was just another evening shift at Schlitterbahn Water Park. My new job as a maintenance technician felt like a step up from sleepless nights bussing tables at Waffle House. No more syrup-soaked booths, just chlorine and pipes. But tonight was different. Tonight, I had to descend to the bottom of the Maw. The Maw wasn't just a water slide. It was the park's newest, biggest, and easily strangest attraction. A massive enclosed chute that twisted riders into darkness until the finale. Sterling, the owner, a miser with a weird obsession for the macabre, had acquired it, a shark statue dredged up from the bottom of some forgotten lake. According to Reddit threads, the statue had been used in a low-budget horror film and then sunk deliberately to scare off curious divers. There are plenty of photos online. Just search Statue Shark Lake Abandoned. It's not so much terrifying as mesmerizing. A huge, strange sculpture. If you've got even a hint of submechanophobia, don't Google it. Bone white with a mock smile permanently etched on its face. Those upturned corners of the mouth were enough to raise goosebumps. It looked amazing in photos. Sterling dumped a fortune into recovering it, and even more into making it come alive. Now, if a guest paid a few extra bucks, they'd shoot out of the tunnel into a deep pool, and just below the surface, see the shark waiting. With a hiss of hydraulics, it launched upward on a 20-foot rail, sending waves crashing, then instantly vanished back into the dark, ready for the next rider to trigger the sensor. At night, when the last screaming kid left and the gates were locked, the Maw went silent. Not just quiet, thick silence. A stillness that felt heavy and oddly soothing. My checklist that evening was the usual: filters, pressure gauges, and the shark itself. The main sensor was acting up, which meant I had to dive down and check the housing. I grabbed my gear. Just another Tuesday. Mask, regulator, steady hiss of breath. The pool water, wild by day, was now glassy and calm, reflecting distant park lights like scattered diamonds. I pushed off the edge and slipped into the cool, chlorinated deep. The surface sounds faded. Half light turned to shadow. I switched on my flashlight. A narrow beam sliced through the black. And there she was. The shark. I'd seen it 100 times from above and in photos. But face to face, underwater, it was different. Huge, easily twice my size, but still just a statue. The dead black eyes didn't faze me. But that smile, flat, off, almost smug. Just a weird fold at the corners of the mouth. But something about it set my skin crawling. I blamed the light. Water distorts everything. Just a trick. Just curiosity, I told myself. I steadied my breath and swam closer. The sensor was near the jaw. Surprisingly, the water around the statue was crystal clear, like it rejected debris, offering a perfect view. The closer I got, the sharper the details. The rough, scratched fiberglass surface felt disturbingly lifelike. The teeth were perfect little triangles. And that smile, deeper now, not wider, not brighter, deeper, as if new creases had formed around the mouth. I hovered, finning gently. shrugged. Angle, reflection. Just a statue, I muttered through the regulator. Plastic and hydraulics. I opened the panel, worked through the wires, reconnected a loose plug. Done. I was already dreaming of a cold, sweet tea. I looked up. The shark's head had shifted, only by a tiny angle, a tilt to the left. But it had moved. The smile, even deeper now. A hint of a predatory grin. A chill slid under my wetsuit. I blinked. Must be the current. I pushed off, starting to swim back, when I felt a vibration. Faint, but real, like it came from inside the statue. My heart stuttered. Hydraulics were off. The park was empty. I was alone. So what moved? Whatever. Time to wrap up. I kicked away from the shark and aimed for the exit ladder, glancing back once more. That's when I noticed something new. Near the base of the shark's tail, an opening. It hadn't been there before. I would have remembered it. A jagged seam in the fiberglass, just wide enough to crawl through. Not a hatch, not a service port. An opening. I hovered, debating. Curiosity has a price. I know that now, but at the time, I thought maybe it was a prank, Sterling messing around again. Maybe he was filming for one of his weird promo videos. Or maybe someone vandalized the statue. Either way, I had to check. I swam down. The opening led into the belly of the beast. Narrow, tight. The flashlight barely fit. I squirmed forward. My tank scraped against the sides. The further in I went, the colder the water got. The light hit something up ahead, a mask, not mine, an old, half-shattered scuba mask, algae covered. Beside it, a tank, rusted, a diving fin split in two. My breath caught. This wasn't just some maintenance tunnel. Someone had been here. I turned, ready to back out. Then the statue shifted again. This time, I felt it. The entire interior creaked. Something groaned deep in the fiberglass, like breathing. I dropped the flashlight. The beam spun wildly, catching flashes of red paint, or was it blood, on the walls. The narrow space collapsed tighter. My tank caught. I kicked, hard. Nothing gave. Something moved behind me. Not fast, just steady. A slither, a scrape, then a click. Not mechanical, not a pipe. A jaw. I screamed into the regulator and thrashed, twisting free just enough to yank myself backward. My tank slammed against something sharp, searing pain in my ribs, but I didn't stop. I kicked out of the tunnel, into open water. I dropped the flashlight, lost my bearings, surfaced gasping. I clawed out of the pool, tore off the mask, ripped the tank from my back. No one was around. I lay on the concrete, coughing, shivering, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it all, that the statue hadn't moved, that the tunnel wasn't real. But when I looked back into the water, the shark was facing me, not just turned, looking. Its head had rotated almost a full 40 degrees from where I'd left it, the smile now wide, almost triumphant, and beneath it, just visible under the surface, the opening was gone. The next day, I filed a report, just like protocol said. I logged the sensor issue, left out the part about the statue moving, and didn't mention the tunnel. Who would believe me? I showed up late for my shift the following evening, half hoping someone else had been assigned to the maw. No such luck. As I made my rounds, I noticed something strange. The maintenance logs for the past month had pages missing, ripped out. When I asked Sterling, he just shrugged and said, "System glitch." Yeah, right. I went to the filtration shack and pulled the park's internal blueprints. I had to know what was going on. Maybe the statue had internal access, a maintenance hatch I'd never been told about. There was nothing. No tunnel, no interior cavity, No way to enter that statue at all. I stood there, staring at the blueprints, until one of the new guys walked in. Kid named Bryce. Young, fresh out of college. "Hey," he said. "You were on the mall last night, right? Any advice?" I nearly told him to call in sick, but I didn't. I said, "Don't stay in the water longer than you have to." He laughed it off. That night, he dove down to check the lighting system. Routine stuff. He never came back up. The park launched a full search. Divers, police, dogs, nothing. Not a single sign of Bryce. No bubbles, no body, nothing. They drained the maw the next morning. Every pipe, every valve. The statue was still there. Same position, same smile. No tunnel. When they lifted it out of the pool with a crane, everyone gasped. Inside the open jaw, just behind the fiberglass teeth, they found something wedged between the hydraulic braces. A dive knife, with his name engraved on the hilt. Sterling shut the ride down the next day, said it was out for renovations. The statue's gone now, hauled off in the middle of the night. No explanation, no press, just vanished. But sometimes, late at night, when I drive past the empty lot where the maw used to be, I swear I can still hear it, breathing. I'm writing this from prison. 2 weeks ago, I beat a man to death. Broad daylight. Plenty of witnesses. Gas station cameras caught the whole thing. No point denying what happened. What was his sin? He laughed at my scars. When I stepped up to him, he threw a slushie in my face. In return, I turned his face into a bloody pulp with my bare fists. Did he deserve it? Probably not. I didn't even know him. Was it a crime of passion? Technically, yeah. But it's more complicated than that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. God knows I'll likely get the needle. I came to this dark corner of the internet just to explain. Like I said, what happened that day is tangled. Before I moved to Florida, I worked private security, the kind you don't talk about even when you know you're close to the end. Let's keep it simple and say I was a contractor stationed at a research facility in Antarctica. You think you know cold? You don't. Not like that. Everything's huge and frozen and deadly. The base we guarded was built far beyond the reach of civilization. That was intentional. Nobody hosts press conferences in an ice desert. We did regular perimeter patrols to make sure no one was spying on the research, but the weather limited our range. I must have patrolled those icy fields 100 times and never once saw a sign, direct or indirect, that any other soul had been out there. Everyone complained constantly about the bitter cold and terrible food, but that was just etiquette. Something to talk about when inspiration runs dry in a land of white nothingness. Truth is, the job was easy. Gear up, stomp through the snow, then drink, curse, and play cards. Then, sometime in the late 2010s, Command had a special request. They needed absolute certainty that no one was watching for miles in any direction. We patrolled the perimeter as usual, but now the higher-ups wanted us to sweep a region no one had visited in over 20 years. Normally, a remote operation like that called for at least 7 people. The payout was split, same as a regular patrol. But a smaller team? That meant bigger money. Maybe it's guilt talking, but I don't think I was the one who first suggested a minimal crew. Either way, there were only 3 of us, not counting the Estonian icebreaker captain. I knew the other 2 well, but we never talked about family. I doubt their loved ones know the truth, and I don't want them finding out from me. So let's call my teammates Red and Silver. Silver led the mission. He'd been stationed at the base long before I arrived and barely spoke. I never learned where he was from. His accent sounded like it was built from pieces of everywhere. What I did know, he liked cigars and had served over 20 years in the military of whatever secretive country he came from. Red handled comms. A loud, reckless guy from somewhere in Latin America, maybe Brazil. No one cursed the cold more creatively. But when things got dangerous, he was rock solid. Silver and Red carried rifles. I brought my Remington for anything that got too close. Not that we expected trouble. None of us did. Even Silver, with all his years in the deep freeze, had never once fired at a living target. Our biggest concern was staying warm enough not to lose fingers to frostbite. Antarctica never offers good weather, but that morning it was as calm as it gets. The further we left the familiar perimeter behind, the harsher the wind grew. Once we passed into uncharted territory, the world turned into a screaming blizzard of snow and wet grit. The Estonian captain, as usual, said nothing, just puffed his pipe and fiddled with machinery. He was a quiet man, but even on his stone-carved face, I noticed a nervous twitch. None of us were cracking jokes. When the storm really picked up, Red's radio started glitching. And once the blizzard hit full strength, the equipment went dead. The icebreaker rocked side to side as hours of storm battered us. At times, it felt like we'd capsize. Everyone kept their poker faces, but the tension was razor thin. By midday, the sky finally cleared. The ocean settled into calm slaps against the hull. Red entertained us with crude, Titanic jokes. Despite the storm, we were on schedule. Only a short stretch left before we could turn back. But just as we began to relax, the Estonian silently called us to the observation deck. Something dark stood out in the distance. A black structure, like a wound in the white. As we got closer, the shape resolved into a pier, a dock. Out in the middle of an Antarctic wasteland, where survival without millions in gear was impossible, there it stood. I'm no architect, but Silver called it Gothic. Spires rose along the edges like crooked black fingers. The planks were sharp-edged and unfriendly. Even with the skies clear, Red's radio stayed dead. No way to report the find. Silver argued we should turn back, report it, and send a better-equipped team. Red, reckless as ever, suggested at least checking the far end of the dock. The Estonian, true to form, said nothing. So it fell to me. The ominous structure didn't exactly scream safe, but I did the math. If we went back, they'd make us rest. Send someone else. The bonus would go to another team. We'd get standard rate, no hazard pay. I wish I could say Red talked me into it. That way I could pass the blame. But I won't lie, to you or myself. I was the one who said we should keep going. I convinced Silver to step off that icebreaker and onto the black metal path. Not because I believed it was safe, but because I had debts waiting for me back home. The closer we got, the more surreal it became. The pier wasn't metal. It wasn't wood either. Something in between, black and porous like volcanic rock, but smooth underfoot. When I knelt to inspect it, my gloves came back dry. Despite the ice and sea spray, the surface repelled moisture. That's when I started to feel it. A low-frequency hum vibrating up through my boots. It wasn't mechanical. It was deeper, like the kind of frequency you feel in your teeth before you hear it. There were no tracks, no wires, no sign of life. Just that endless black pier stretching forward. And at the far end, a building rose from the sea, a tower, pitch black and windowless, with a single phrase engraved above a thick iron door. Bow to your professor. We stopped. I glanced at Red. He gave a nervous laugh, the first real crack in his tough guy mask. Silver stared at the engraving, unmoving. This is military? I asked, half hoping someone would explain it all away. No, Silver said. Not any military I've ever known. Still, we moved forward. The door opened without resistance. No lock, no creak. Just a silent swing inward, revealing a single vast chamber. At first, we thought it was empty. Then the lights flickered on. Not electric lights, There were no bulbs. The air itself seemed to glow, a dull amber that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center of the chamber stood a massive structure, something like a throne or maybe a control chair. Black cables snaked outward from its base in all directions, disappearing into the walls and floor. The chair was empty, but someone had been here. The walls were covered in text, scratched, scrawled, etched in every direction and language, some in English, some not. One phrase kept repeating, "He is the thought that thinks itself." Another, "The professor teaches without speaking." And most disturbingly, class began before the first cell divided. Red read them aloud, pacing around like a curious tourist. Silver didn't speak. I just stared at the chair. I've seen tech. I've guarded top-secret labs with prototype AI. This wasn't tech. This was something else. The air grew warmer the longer we stood there. The light brightened subtly, but the shadows didn't change. My watch stopped ticking. Red's compass spun aimlessly. Even Silver's rifle started to fog, though the room was bone dry. Then the sound returned. That same hum, but stronger now, all around us. Red muttered something in Spanish. Silver raised his weapon. That's when the cables began to move. At first, just a twitch, like they were alive, stretching after a long sleep. Then they began to slither, reaching for the chair. One by one, they plugged themselves into it. Then the throne breathed. A hiss. A low inhale. And from deep within the walls came a sound I will never forget. Class begins. We didn't speak. None of us. It wasn't fear. Not yet. It was paralysis. As if the air itself had thickened, locking our joints in place. My brain screamed to run, but my legs stayed rooted. Even Red, always the first to bolt, just stood there, wide-eyed and shivering. The cables pulsed. Then something grew in the chair. It didn't crawl out or appear in a flash. It emerged, like mold from dampness, like rot blooming across meat. A shape began to take form, slowly solidifying into something almost human. It had limbs, a torso, a head. But it wasn't bones and flesh. It was language. Lines of writing formed its skin. Thousands of characters. Every inch of its body was covered in text, scratched, typed, inked, tattooed. Words and languages I recognized, and others I didn't. Sanskrit, Latin, Braille, mathematical symbols, musical notation, code. Its face was a smudged cluster of sentences. No mouth, no eyes, no features. Just thought, etched into shape. It turned its head toward us. Not physically, but somehow we knew. It was looking. Red snapped first. He screamed, high, shrill, and fired. 3 rapid shots. The sound thundered in the chamber. Nothing happened. The bullets vanished before impact, swallowed by the glowing air. The creature didn't flinch, but the walls did. They rippled. The writing began to slide, rearranging itself like a digital display. New phrases appeared in English, scrawled across every surface. The student has interrupted. The student has failed to read. The student will be rewritten. Then Red dropped his gun. He clutched his head and collapsed, convulsing. His mouth opened wider than it should have, far past the limits of any jaw. Letters poured out. Literal letters. Falling from his lips like wet paper, fluttering onto the floor. His eyes turned into punctuation marks, commas leaking tears, question marks trembling, and then he stopped. His body folded neatly like a book closing. He was gone. Silver shouted something and grabbed me, pulling me back. My legs worked now. I ran. We didn't look back. We sprinted out the door, across the pier, through the snow. The Estonian had already turned the ship. His instincts knew better than to wait. We leapt aboard and screamed at him to go. He didn't ask questions. The black tower didn't follow. But the hum did. All the way back to the base, the sound followed us. We never spoke of it again. Silver left the station a week later, said nothing, just boarded a supply plane and vanished. I never learned his real name. I don't think he wanted me to. Red's disappearance was written off as a tragic accident during patrol. They filed it under environmental hazard. No one argued. No one looked into it. I finished my contract, left Antarctica, and tried to put it all behind me. But something came back with me. Not the creature, not the professor, but the knowledge, the weight of it. I started seeing patterns in everything. Billboards, license plates, even cereal boxes, messages, fragments of that chamber. Phrases like, "You are a syllable. You are not being taught. You are being read." The end of the sentence is death. I started having seizures, hallucinations. My body would lock up at random. Sometimes I'd wake up with new scars, lines carved into my skin like text, always backwards, always in a language I didn't understand. Then one day I was at a gas station, just pumping gas, minding my business. This man in a windbreaker walked by. He looked at me and laughed. Not a big laugh, just a smirk. But it was exactly like the professor's smile, mocking, knowing. That same fold at the corners. Then he said, "Nice scribbles, man. What, you get blackout drunk and play Sudoku on your ribs?" I froze. And when he tossed that slushy in my face, bright blue dripping down my shirt, something inside me cracked. I didn't just see him. I saw a page, a mistake, something that didn't belong in the sentence of the world. So I tore him out of it. When the cops pulled me off him, I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was calm, because I knew something they didn't. The professor is still teaching, and some of us are still listening. That's all for tonight. If this story got under your skin, give it a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. There's more to come. Chilling tales, dark secrets, and nightmares lurking in the shadows. We'll meet again in the next episode of Night Bites. Scary story. Sleep tight, if you still can.